What is up, everybody? Welcome to tonight's webinar. I am not a webinar kind of guy, so I don't do this all the time. Just wanted to jump in and share a little bit of content with you. I hope that you'll find this content super valuable. We're going to try and just rock on through this. I know a lot of people are counting on the recording. I appreciate you being on here with me live. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them up in the chat at any time along the way. Hopefully I will be able to see that and grab those. Let's get started. Today, I want to talk about how to ensure that your message cuts through all of the noise of the pandemic and the election, and it gets through to your ideal prospect. For the sake of today's presentation, I'm assuming that you already know who your ideal prospect is. You understand your ideal client. You understand the difference between ideal client and target market. If you don't, I want to highly recommend that you search out the Book Yourself Solid Facebook group. Matthew Kimberly is doing a phenomenal job over there helping people to sift through all of that and understand how to do that best, how to figure that out. Now, once we have that down, we can begin the process then of diving into tonight's content. So again, I'm assuming that you know. If you don't know, please don't just go through the content and try to apply it more or less in a universal way, because it's not really going to work. It's not going to be effective for you. Now, I want you to understand that also what we're presenting tonight is going to be very, very counterintuitive. I always say that the best advice when I'm consulting with a client, consulting with a company, I always prep them at the beginning to let them know that the best advice is always counterintuitive. Look, you're tuning in tonight, and we had all of these people that signed up for the webinar. So you're either tuning in live or you are signed up watching the recording because you want to know how to better your messaging, your marketing, to reach more people, make a bigger impact, and create the lifestyle that you deserve. And if you already knew how to do that, there would be no reason for you to be on the webinar. There'd be no reason for you to even be watching this. And so I get it. A lot of this will be counterintuitive. You're going to be saying, I already don't know about that. But I'm telling you from our experience that this works. My name is Dr. Sean Dill. I am the founder of the Black Diamond Club. I also run, along with my wife, Lacey Book, who I'm sure you might have seen in various media appearances. She is super sought after right now, especially because of all of the things going on with the pandemic, doing tons of media, sharing insights with small business owners. We also run a franchise of chiropractic clinics called the Specific Chiropractic Centers. We are also owners and partners in the new Katana patient relationship platform. If you haven't checked out Katana, go to katanahub.com. Check that out, where we're incorporating a lot of these elements that we're going to be discussing today, along with a couple of other companies that we've invested in: Cairo Sushi, Samurai of Cairo Sushi, Brew Beer, Lasso Socks, a lot of different things that we're involved with. Therefore, what I'm telling you is that I'm not in the trenches. I don't know where that came from. Being in a trench sounds absolutely terrible. I'm not in the trenches, but I am telling you what is working for Lacey and I to help us to build multiple 7 figures of revenue across all of our different companies. So, hey, let's start off with what we know. And this isn't a very popular topic to start off with, because I know I've got all my friends, all my QAnon friends. They're like, you'll see, Sean, you'll see, just wait. Well, they've been, first Trump was going to win in a landslide. Then he apparently lost. And then everybody said that he lost on purpose, which I don't know why they didn't. I would have been impressed if you'd have said that from the jump. Like, look, here's what's going to happen. Trump is going to lose narrowly. It's because the other people cheated. But you didn't. You said he was going to win in a landslide. And then he didn't win in a landslide. And then you said, well, he did that on purpose. And now you're saying that he's going to win. Look, here's all we know. Here's what we know. And I think that's super important. We have to go with what we know. Whether you like it, whether you agree with it, this is what we know is right now, according to the AP, Biden has been declared the winner. Now, Biden is set up. I'm not saying that I'm a fan of either one of these guys. Biden has created this fictitious office of the president-elect, and he's on TV and he's telling his plan. I will say this, I have noticed, and if you're new to me, I don't think I think you'll have a hard time finding somebody that understands both sides and the propaganda and the strategies that are happening on both sides as much as I do. I'm not one-sided. I don't have a dog in the fight. I watch both sides. I'm going to tell you why in just a second. I noticed that Biden is beginning to lay out his plans for the future, what he plans on doing when he takes office in January. I noticed that Trump isn't saying anything about what's going to go on beyond we have a vaccine and we're going to get it to everybody, but there's no concrete details about what his plan is. I think that's awful telling. So here's what we know. Biden has been projected as the winner. Biden has declared himself the winner. Biden is planning on transitioning and becoming the president January 20th, 2021. And that's going to mean a ton of changes for you in the way that you do business. Basically in two areas. There's going to be the financial area. It's going to represent a lot of changes in the financial world that has a lot of people with a lot of anxiousness. It's also going to represent a lot of changes relative to the management of this pandemic, this thing called COVID-19. And so we must then think in our minds, well, we need a plan. We don't need more posts on Facebook about your theories about what's going on. I'm telling you, it's not going to help. What we need is a plan. You need a plan. Now, I have a plan. And if you're in Black Diamond Club, I'm laying out that plan and I'm trying to prep you up for that. But I'm telling you, every single one of you needs a plan. The reason why is because these things change on a daily basis. We're constantly receiving new information. Now, if you are not a chiropractor, I am a chiropractor by trade. If you are not a chiropractor, I help service providers. Now, because I'm a chiropractor by profession, I have a lot of chiropractic friends and chiropractic clients, but I'm going to tell you this. In my opinion, for every single one of the service providers that I work with, and I don't work with just chiropractors, I work with people in digital marketing agencies, I work with people in the fitness industry, I work with people that provide other types of digital products and programs that are coaches and consultants, all types of different things. And I will tell you, in my opinion, the number one biggest threat facing you right now, all of you, not just you chiropractors, is the imminent vaccine that is coming onto the scene and what that's going to represent to you and your ability to transact business with the rest of the world. I'm worried always about your business. Of course, personally, I have my philosophical issues that I'm concerned about, but I'm really, really concerned about your business. I know that a lot of people get distracted with the results of the election. Let's put that behind us. Right now, what we're working with, and again, I know what might be going on behind the scenes. I'll reveal that to you as well. I know I'm not ignorant to it, but right now, let's work with what we know. And let's also understand that we are looking at the prospect of having an extended lockdown come January 20th. We're looking at the prospect of up to a 2-year mask mandate. We're looking at the prospect of forced vaccines. Now, here's what happens. I know what you're saying. Well, I'm not going to get the vaccine. Well, that's not a plan. Well, I'm not going to shut down. Well, that's not a plan. And when I talk about lockdowns, I think we're going to see lockdowns that are going to be tighter than anything that you've seen previous. I need you to understand that today, as you're watching this webinar, that the number of cases is higher today than it was when we were in lockdown, right? So we can't just go back to a regular lockdown. If I'm putting myself in the position of the authorities, they're going to put you into a tighter lockdown. This is going to represent a lot of changes for a lot of you. It's going to be something that all of us are going to have to navigate. Therefore, you need a plan. And you need a plan based off of the information and the knowledge that we have currently, because having a plan will allow you to adapt your plan, modify your plan. If you're going to just freewheel it and just, make decisions and you're just going to say, I'm not shutting down or I'm not getting the vaccine, which, by the way, I've discussed this a lot. I'm against the vaccine. I'm for choice. I think you should have a choice. But I'm going to tell you what they're going to do is they're going to tell you, you too have a choice. I'm going to tell you, they're going to say, you don't have to get the vaccine. And you're going to say, yeah. And they're going to say, you only need to have the vaccine if you want to say, get on an airplane. You only need the vaccine if you're going to stay in a hotel. You're only going to need the vaccine if you want to renew your professional license. You're only going to need, so they're going to say you don't have to have it. If you just want to stay locked up in your house and never go anywhere, you don't have to have it. But if you want to, it's the same thing with the masks. Did you notice how now the masks, you have to wear a mask to fly? Even all my, I'll never wear a mask friends. If you flew on a plane, you wore a mask. And so they're going to do the same thing with the vaccine. Right. And so this is why this is a big, big, big issue, not on the personal level, but on the business issue. And I'm going on the business side, and I'm going to continue to illustrate that for you. But I want you to have a plan. That's what we're here for tonight, is to start the process of getting you a plan put together. And we're specifically talking about your messaging. So Warren Buffett says a great investment opportunity occurs when a marvelous business encounters a one-time huge but solvable problem. And I want you to understand, in a lot of ways, from a business perspective, COVID-19 may have been the greatest thing that ever happened to you as a service provider. Now, I know it's hard to fathom, it's hard to wrap your mind around that, but it's absolutely true. Because this presented a big one-time problem that you can potentially solve. Now, I'm not talking about you solving a a global pandemic, but I'm talking about on the microcosm level, individuals that begin to have problems and you beginning to be able to solve that through your service. Now, I always say that there's no reason why you should have gotten into this business, whatever it is that you're in, if you didn't believe that your service had the potential to actually impact and change the world. So if you actually believe that, now is the time. This is the best opportunity and potentially the biggest and greatest opportunity that will ever be presented to you in your lifetime. Where literally, when we talk about lockdowns, but I need for you Americans to understand lockdowns are happening all over the world. Not, you just don't know it because you live in this weird bubble. But lockdowns are happening in Scotland, and England's already locked down, the Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand. A lot of countries are already in lockdown. That means that we have a contained and captive audience that just may, if you understand messaging and how to put a message out there, may be able to be engaged with at an all-time high, greater than any other time in history, if we just understood this. But here's what I want you to do, is because I was just talking about Warren Buffett and investing. So I want you to shift your mindset. So stop thinking of yourself as a whatever it is that you do, and start thinking about yourself as an investor. You know, this is one of the greatest things that I've encountered in my life, because I do all these different things and people always ask me, what do you do? What do you do, Sean? And I'm like, well, and I try to explain it to them and they're like, wait, so there's this like, so Black Diamond and there's a franchise and there's an EHR, but then there's like, you make sushi. And so here's what I just tell people, I'm an investor. And it's absolutely true. On one level, yes, I do invest in companies. I'm an investor, mostly in startups, and I love to help them start up, and I get them going. So yes, I am an investor, but I also want you to understand you too are an investor, even if you just have your own business. And I think that mindset shift will help you greatly. You never invest money or time into something that you are not reasonably certain will produce a good return for you. And so here's the danger inside of the pandemic. I know a lot of you, and I'm going to prove it to you, I'm going to show you, but a lot of you guys are on this webinar with me right now because you are looking for a magic bullet. You're like, oh yes, Sean's going to tell me how to get 28 new clients tomorrow. I never do that. Go ahead and jump off. I'll watch the participant numbers fall off. That's not what I'm doing today. I'm talking about a plan. I'm talking about a strategy. There's so many magic bullet options out there for you, but those are not wise investments. That's like somebody telling you at the bar, hey man, you should invest in Barstool Sports. I already lost a couple. I got you. You should invest in Barstool Sports because that stock's going to blow up. And then you jumping on your stock account and just like unloading your bank account in it because somebody at the bar told you that was the ticket. That was what was going to blow up. Well, that's not wise. That's not what you want to do. And likewise, when it comes to your own business, because so-and-so told you that they went to this conference and learned how to do this, that, or the other thing, and then you're immediately signing up, I want you to shift your mindset and start thinking about investing. We only invest in things that we have certainty that are going to produce a result. I'm here telling you, I'm not here to sell you anything. I don't have a pitch. I don't have anything that it's not rolling into some ending sales. I literally, and I'm going to show you, I literally did this as an example to all of my clients, to all of the people that were in Marco Island with me 2 weekends ago for our marketing workshop. I did this webinar as an example. You are right now witnessing a live example of a lab. You are all part of a giant business experiment. And I am proving my point right now with 80 participants on live, with another 220 participants registered. And I don't do webinars. You should be thinking, oh my gosh, how does he do it? I don't do it, but I'm going to show you exactly how we did this and how you too can do the very same thing. But I want you to think about yourself as an investor. So I need for you to understand something so you can understand how we did this, because a lot of you are mistaken in the way that you are viewing your business and its problems. Basically, there's two types of problems, major problems that we solve for in the consulting world, and that's volume and averages, right? Especially when it comes to marketing and sales, which are two different things, by the way. They're not all the same thing. Marketing, what it does, it creates awareness. It doesn't get you new clients. And sales is how you then convince, once awareness is created. Sales is the process by which you establish the relationship, the transactional relationship, where the prospect decides not just to be your electronic friend, but decides to actually engage you both with their time and their finances in exchange for your reputation and producing a result that you've promised through this process of marketing. Now, a lot of you don't understand the difference between volumes and averages because you've been sold this faulty idea that there's no such thing as marketing, that everything is sales. Well, marketing has a lot to do with volume. Sales has a lot to do with averages. Let me explain. Hugh Duffy holds the all-time batting average record, 440. He batted 440 with the Boston Bean Eaters in 1895. I didn't even Boston Bean Eaters, Major League Baseball team. But I need you to understand something. When Hugh Duffy batted 440 in 1894, he played in 125 games and he had 616 plate appearances. It's pretty incredible. In this year, in a COVID-shortened pandemic Major League Baseball season, DJ LeMahieu of the New York Yankees led the league with a 364 batting average, but he only had 195 at-bats. So I ask you, so who is better? Here's what the problem is because of the magic bullet syndrome, which is leading you directly off of a cliff. And all you care about is closing. And then you get all of your advice because you've been convinced that everything ties back to closing. That's not true. That's not true. Because if all it was about was closing, if the whole world was just about sales, and you understood this example here of Hugh Duffy, then we could make the argument that DJ, if he got more at bats and we could make him a better, right, then he would eclipse Hugh. Now, this record has stood the test of time, 1894. So let's look at this. Let's say that you close at 50% and I close at 20%. Let's say that you get 10 at bats or 10 prospects. You will close 5 of them. Let's say that I get 100 prospects. I will close 20. Who's doing better? Me. I have 20 signups. You have 5. You close at a higher rate. Your averages are higher, but my volume is higher. So I've circumvented my average deficiency with greater volume. This whole idea that all I need to do is close more is not true. You need more leads and you need to close more. So reality is that most of you watching the webinar right now, you do not have a problem with averages. You have a major problem with volume. Sure, you've taken all of the courses. You might have even studied with me. You might have learned sales with me. That's great. But if you have no leads coming in the door, if you have not even in the door, by the way, if you have no leads coming into your system, then we have a major problem. And I want you to understand closing is not just that final sales call, or for those of you in brick and mortar, that in person when you close. Closing is from the moment that I make a Facebook post and say, do you want me to do a webinar? Closing is getting you from yes to you clicked on the thing and you registered. That's a close. That's a conversion. That's an average. Do you know how to do that? Can you move them now that you're watching the webinar? Can I move you from the webinar into the next level of engagement? That's a next close. That's a conversion. Though giving me $2,500 a month for private consulting, that could be months or maybe even years down the road. And me taking tons of courses to learn how to do that better is absolutely useless if I don't understand how to move you sequentially from a simple Facebook post, which I'm going to show you, all the way to a webinar, which we're doing now, all the way to the next steps, which some of you will take with me. And some of you, believe it or not, are going to end up at some point paying me a lot of money for one-on-one consulting. I work with some of the greatest and best influencers in multiple industries. In fact, I think that a lot of you would actually be shocked if I just showed you my roster. If you knew who was actually, these are very prominent people that are running their own programs, that are running their own seminars. and they're getting coaching from me because they want to reach more people, make a bigger impact, and create the lifestyle that they deserve. But they didn't start out just picking up the phone and calling me and saying, I want to give you money. No, it was a process. And there's a bunch of people that are in the funnel that are moving closer down. You, my friend, probably have a volume issue. Now, very important. Never try to fix an averages problem with a volume solution or a volume problem with an averages solution. If you recognize you have a volume problem, you better start finding tools to solve the volume problem and stop trying to get better at averages. That's not the name of the game. We're not just trying to make you better at averages. We're trying to get you to actually close better. Jump into the chat here real quick. If you got any questions for me, post them up. What's up, Peter Watts? Peter, book yourself solid certified coach. If you're looking for a coach in Europe, man, Peter is the man. And I know Nicole, Trump won, they cheated, which is going to be a very important message. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So they really mean that you'll have to have it if you want to do anything. Yes. And hoping is not a plan. And yes, that is, if you want to do anything, you're going to need that vaccine. Great. We're all caught up. Let's move on. So here's a winning formula based off of that. I need you to master the offer. So we've got to figure out, what do you offer? Who do you help? And what do you help them do? You need to master lead generation. Maybe next webinars, we can talk about that. And then you need to master conversion. I think you guys are pretty, rock solid on conversions because you have 9 million courses that you've already taken. So the value of something is determined by, everybody check this out, lock in with me. Number one is the pain of not having it. So more on this in a moment. I'm going to talk about this. This is a massive shift that is occurring in the sales world that you got to stay up on. And this is why I dedicate so much of my time on just trying to understand what's happening out there in the world and the shifts in human psychology. And number two is the amount of other people who can solve it. Let's say this. Let's say that, it's spring comes, 2021. I'm like, look, man, grass is getting high. I don't want to cut the grass myself. It sounds terrible. I'm going to hire somebody to do it. So the pain of not having somebody to cut it, I got to go out there and cut the grass myself. That for me actually sounds terrible. But how many other people can solve for this? So let's say that I call the first landscaper in the book or on the internet, and I'm like, hello, I need my grass cut. And they're like, no problem, bro. We can come out there. We can do it right away. That's only going to be, we only charge $1,000 per cut. And so just depending on how many times you need your grass cut in the summer, we'll settle up at the end of the summer. It's just $1,000 times how many times we come out. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really, that sounds kind of expensive. So I call another person and they're like, hey, yep, no problem. We could do that. We'll do it for $50 per cut. We're really good. We have a lot of references. I'm like, well, that sounds good. And then my neighbor's like, well, my son is in high school and he cuts yards for $35, right? How many people can solve for cutting grass? A ton of people can. So the value of that, you can't get $1,000 for your yard, for an average yard. Why? It's not because there's no pain in not having it done. It's because there's a lot of people that can solve for it. Question for you. If you want to survive this, you want your message to cut through the election and the noise of the election and the pandemic, you've got to think to yourself, what is the problem that I solve and let's be honest with yourself, that I am within the top 10 people in the world at solving it. I mean, if you don't honestly believe that, then we need to find something else. And we can, that's nothing wrong with that. We need to find something else. But what is the problem that you solve that you literally are within the top 10 in the world at solving? If it's nothing, we'll find something. It might not be what you're doing now. There's nothing wrong with that because we might be able to monetize something else. But I want you to understand something very important because people tend to underestimate the big problems and overestimate the small problems. So people tend to underestimate the big problems and they overestimate the small ones. So your focus, first of all, your focus tends to drift towards all of the small problems, trying to solve for all these small things. But I want you to understand that it's the same thing that happens in your prospects. They're trying to solve for all of these small things. And they're overlooking all of the big issues. So your job is to clue them in on the bigger problems so that they can focus on the big problems and help them to understand what would happen if they didn't do that. You see, the price of inaction is far greater than the cost of making a mistake. Now, this is a massive shift that is occurring. I'm seeing this happen in Q4. Again, you can take it or leave it. You can pay me a ton of money later on when you realize that I was right, or you can listen to me right now. You're going to have to pay me to learn how to do this. but you could right now understand that this is a shift that's occurring in Q4 of 2020, where we are moving away from the Barack Obama and the idea of selling hope to now, and I'm going to illustrate this to you, to now selling the cost of inaction, the cost or the price of inaction. Now, this is not to say fear-based marketing. You're going to die, you're going to be bankrupt. That's not what we're saying, but we are talking about the price of inaction. This is one of the things that will move the needle in your prospects, and very few people are talking about that. And it's vitally important. I'm going to talk to you and show you why. So your ability to sell whatever you're selling depends on your ability to show your prospect the cost of doing nothing. Every prospect is considering, like, what should I do? And what happens because of the time that we're living in is they think to themselves, well, maybe I should wait. Well, maybe Biden is going to lock down the United States. Maybe my taxes are going to go up. Maybe I'm going to lose my job. Maybe the stock market might take all the things. So since I don't know all of this uncertainty, maybe I should wait. And what you have to do is you have to get them to weigh the cost of waiting versus the benefit, right, of taking action now, getting them to be more decisive. So here we go. Let's drill down your messaging. Super important. The cost of inaction. Biden, how did Biden win? Biden had a super strong social media game. In 2016, Trump had a super strong social media game. That's, in effect, how Trump beat Hillary Clinton. In 2020, Biden had a stronger social media game than Trump. Trump, for large part, abandoned, not completely, but for large part, just when you look at spending, Trump was not spending nearly the amount of money that Biden was in the social media realm. Now, this social media presence, along with, and you can argue, I get it, I hear all the sides, you can argue, along with media bias and social media bias, is what arguably propelled Biden to the presidency. This is what allowed Biden to stay locked up in his basement there, not doing press conferences, not having to share a whole heck of a lot, just being in his basement and cruising, but to a narrow win. Now, polls said that he was going to win by a much greater margin. So how did Trump close that gap down? We're talking business here, not QAnon, not conspiracy theory, not the silent majority, although that is important. But Trump's strategy centered on a ground game. Now, this to me is so important. So Trump wins the presidency in 2016 based largely on a social media game. He decides to shift, or his campaign decides to shift away from that, and they focus heavily on a ground game. What does that mean? That means that over 1 year ago, Trump began rallying on a grassroots level his teams, little pods of people, and they were going out door to door, and they were talking to people, which is brilliant because face to face, listen to me right now, because face to face was super effective, and it was a way to short circuit and go around what they perceived to be the media and social media bias, right? And so this was a way to circumvent that. Understanding, and so look, I think that there's some of you watching right now that are like, yeah, social media is biased against me. Okay, then you've got to leverage a ground game. With this strong ground game, Trump closed that gap down. I mean, in effect, they were tied. I mean, negligible statistically. It wasn't supposed to be that close. And so one did it through social media. So I'm advising you right now, you gotta have a strong social media game. Two was a strong ground game, right? A strong ground game. So you also have to have a strong ground game. So if you have those two things, I think that you will be much more successful. So let's talk about messaging. Oh, I got to go back. One more thing on the election. I want you to pay close attention. I don't think that you'll find anybody that watched more Joe Biden and more Donald Trump combined than me. I know a lot of people that watch a lot of Joe because they like Joe. I know a lot of people that watch a lot of Donald, but they didn't watch any Joe. I watched them both, and they both had one core message as they came down that last week before the election. Do you know what it was? It was get out and vote. Get out and vote. Why was that the message? Right? Build back better, make America great again. I mean, that's the same message. get out and vote. And that's also the same measure. Why was that? Because, listen to me, right now, the dominant sentiment in your community, I don't care where you live, unless you live outside of the United States, but even then, still is going to apply, is the cost of inactivity, the cost of not voting. If every vote counts, count all the votes, stop the count, no, count all the legal votes, right? All of that. What are we talking about? We're talking about the cost of inactivity as the core message, not hope, not build back better, not make America great again, but your voice matters. And if you don't take action, you can cost the country whatever your ideological or political position is. And this messaging was repeated over and over and over again. So now, if we look at the election in the United States, regardless of what side you're on, we've got to understand strong social media game, strong ground game, core messaging, cost of inactivity. I mean, literally, that's what it breaks down to. So for you, let's bring it home with a couple of key strategies that I want you to implement. Number one is preeminence and benevolence. I'm going to give you a link at the end. A lot of my data is coming from my good friend, Philip Stutz at Win Big Media. He's put out tons of consumeristic data during the course of the entire COVID pandemic. I combed through this data because it is so important. If you're in Black Diamond Club, you got me. You don't have to go comb through it yourself. I comb through it. I relate to you how it applies and what I'm recommending. If you're not in Black Diamond Club, the information is free. You just got to comb through it yourself, and you got to come up with your own strategies. So early on in the pandemic, people were very into helping others. And so we very early on, March 2020, we launched these benevolence campaigns. The idea was we were going into small businesses. We were giving them a $100 bill. We were opening a $100 tab. We were doing social media videos, strong social game. We were inviting people into the establishment to take part and receive part of our tab. For the smoothie store, you can put your first smoothie on my tab. Driving traffic to these businesses, helping to sustain and support the small business local community. A lot of people, maybe a lot of you, even saw what we were doing and then just swipe and deployed it. And they did it like once. No. This was a long play. Sean doesn't do anything short game. I'm not trying to ever get 48 new people. I'm just long play. This webinar here tonight, this is a long play. So benevolence and preeminence. Preeminence means being the most trusted advisor to your community, not just in the thing that you do, but being the most trusted advisor. And one of the ways that you do that is by establishing benevolence. By being the most benevolent individual, if you want to be the most respected individual, you must be the most respectful individual. People will then see your benevolence and then elevate your authority. That's just how it works subconsciously. And so we've done is our Black Diamond Club members, those that were committed to success, have been doing this, most of them on a weekly basis. My man Sheridan Mish, he was out there with a string of 70 some odd daily $100 tabs. His goal is to get to 100, where he will have injected $10,000 into his community. And I got to tell you, it comes back. It's not a one-off. It's not a show-off, and it's not a one-off. It's actually creating benevolence. Literally in March, I told the Black Diamond Club that you are going to have to take your community and put them on your back. It is your job, if you want to be successful in 2021, to accept the responsibility that comes with being a leader. This is backed by the fact that people right now are very much into helping others, right? There's a lot of things that are going on and people are attracted to helping other people. So you can leverage this for your good, and not by having a food drive, not because you're like saying, hey, do you want to help? I'm saying you go out and help others. And then we're leveraging social media to propagate and amplify a message. Very important later on. And when we do this, we always want to promote the business that we're benefiting. And if possible, we want to make a video with the owner of the small business so that we can create that relationship. I'm going to dive into that here more in these next segments. Now, the next step is your understanding that we taught in March of 2020, what we viewed as a signal that with the pandemic, that things were shifting in the world of sales. Now, again, if you're still stuck in consultative selling, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. You're just kind of behind. I'm going to illustrate that too in a second. But the world shifted away when we had the information world, we went more into this consultative selling. Consultative selling became super in vogue. And, that's what's going on with you? And I'm trying to, I'm not really selling you the thing that I came here to sell. We're door-to-door salesmen. I had a vacuum. Like, I'm here to sell you a vacuum. And I know consultative selling, like, buy my vacuum. Well, now we've gone into consultative selling where we act like, I'm trying to figure out what you need. I'm trying to get you fit into the right thing. But now we're seeing in March of 2020, we signaled in our BDC Sales Matters workshop a shift, and we started to train our members on the idea of selling an idea. This is going to be the biggest thing, because I'm telling you, you've seen it. Black Lives Matter. Ideologies are what we're selling all over the place. Look at the mainstream strategy now is selling of an idea. Here's what's great news. Most of you, the service that you provide is predicated on a fundamental philosophy or idea. But the bad news is you're not good at selling the idea. You're good at selling the thing. You're good at selling the service. You're just not very good at selling ideas. And I got to tell you, in 2021, the selling of ideas is going to be absolutely critical. And I got to tell you too, again, I can illustrate to you tons of examples how far behind the curve you are if you're not doing this. But the idea of wearing a mask in the blatant face of mounting scientific evidence that mask wearing doesn't really do much. It's an idea that is being sold that by me wearing a mask, I'm taking care of other people. The idea of a vaccine for an illness that statistically it has a survival rate of 99.3%, selling of an idea. So the people that were ahead of the curve began selling ideas while everybody else was selling things. And that's how they swayed an opinion and moved an entire world, because they got out ahead of it. Now, again, they were even ahead of us. I'm not saying that we did it, because I'm not the cabal. I'm not the deep state. They started this way ahead of us, but I saw it happening and I started teaching it in March of 2020. If you're still consultative selling, you're behind. You're a little bit behind on it. So here's what we want to do is we want to leverage their worldviews against them. Now, if you're a fan of Seth Godin, if you do any sort of studying, you know that worldviews and frames are very rigid and difficult to break. That's why you saw all of the fighting. And that's why I'm kind of making fun of both sides, because I think it's actually kind of funny. Some of you actually believe that Biden cheated. Some of you actually believe that Trump was trying to destroy the world and didn't like African Americans. Like, it's like, whatever it is, like, that's literally what you believe. And here's the thing. I can't change your mind. Nobody will change your mind. So here's what's so important for you right now. Some of you have personal worldviews that fly against or fly in the face of what the rest of the world believes. I just said one. Like, a lot of people believe that wearing masks is a good thing. They do. Now, even though I even said, like, I don't see much evidence for it. I'm not yelling at people over the internet because they want to wear a mask. 70% of the people in the world actually think that the vaccine is a good idea. This is another reason why you're going to lose. Like, this whole, somebody was like, well, aren't we going to rise up? Not really. Now, 30% is not a minuscule number, but it's still an overwhelming majority. You're 2-to-1 outnumbered. And 30% of the world, though, thinks that it's a bad idea to get the vaccine. But you can't be posting on the internet that the vaccine is terrible and that you're killing your kids, or like all those things. Like, and I've been saying this for years. But now comes COVID, and this is the greatest opportunity that has ever been presented to you to implement all of the strategies, all of the messaging that you've ever wanted. As long as you do it smart. If you're an absolute idiot, you're in the trenches, you're getting your Facebook account shut down, you're not doing it right? You're not doing it right. Rules are rules, and nobody likes rules. I'm an avid golfer. I wish I could hit the ball in the water and then just like take it out and be like, whatever. I wish I could hit the ball out of bounds and just be like, I'll play it from up there. But you can't. Rules are rules. But the rules are also there to give you an advantage if you understand the rules and how to use them to your advantage. Same thing. Now is a time when these worldviews can be leveraged in your favor greatly. And I'm going to tell you a couple examples. COVID. And I use this phrase, because COVID. You're allowed to do whatever you want. And I know a lot of you aren't even going to believe me, but it's absolutely true. You do whatever you want with your business as long as you blame COVID. Maybe you've worked Saturdays since you've opened up and you're like, I don't want to work Saturdays. Well, then close Saturdays. And when people are like, hey, how come you close Saturdays? Be like, well, because of COVID. And they'll be like, oh, maybe you've always let people pay per visit and you've heard how all of our clients are killing it because they're putting their clients on MRR. We'll move them to MRR now, monthly recurring revenue, put them on monthlies, take them off of their pay per visit. And when they're like, why can't I pay per visit anymore? And say, because of COVID, because I can't have you handing the credit card over to the people and we're touching the cards. It's no good. We're just going to just put it in the thing and we're going to have recurring payments. So we don't have to touch it. You don't have to touch pens. You know, we can't do that. Hey, how come I have to have an appointment? Well, because of COVID. Whatever the thing is that you were trying to implement for years because it was a better business model, you can blame it on COVID. One of the biggest ones, though, that I've been instructing over the past, probably month since we received new information from Philip Stutz, is you guys all need to begin to virtualize the practice of whatever it is that you do. And I know a lot of you are hands-on type people, whatever you do, and so you can't virtualize that part, but you better learn how to virtualize everything else in the front. For all of my chiropractor friends on there, you guys have like the most cumbersome process to give you money known to man. I'm going to show you why that's a bad idea. But my dad's 85 years old. He doesn't talk to a single doctor face-to-face anymore. He's 85 years old and he knows how to do a telemedicine consult with his providers. 85 years old. I mean, if you're still doing old school stuff, you're behind the times. And when people ask you, why are we doing it this way? You say, because COVID. You want to raise your prices tomorrow by $5 and tell them because of COVID. Hey, listen, I got to tell you, just recently, I moved to Florida not so long ago. And so I was looking for a hairstylist that would cut my hair in Florida. Had my assistant Luke call on one, and they wanted to do a virtual consult before they cut my hair. Like, we got to jump on Zoom and do a consult. I was like, I don't want a consult. Like, I just want you to cut my hair. My hair is always short. Just make it go back like this. So cut it shorter. I don't need a consult. I'm also telling you guys, if they don't want to do a consult, you don't have to. But I was like, I don't want to do a consult. And they're like, okay, well, we'll get you in. But then they said, hey, I also want you to know our prices are on our website, which, by the way, for all of you, your prices should be on your website. I'll show you that in a moment as well. This age of it depends how much it costs, that's long gone. People don't got time for that. COVID, maybe going and seeing you and I don't even know how much the hell it costs. Like, tell me how much it costs and then just sign me up. Like, I mean, and if I don't have the money, then I don't want to come to your office to find out that I don't have the money, right? So tell me how much, put on your website. They said, hey, Sean, I want you to know that the prices on the website, it's that plus $5 because of COVID. Literally. I was like, are these guys in BDC? Like, what's happening? It's that price plus $5 because of COVID. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, because cleaning. If you want to raise your fees by $5, raise them tomorrow. Trust me. And when people say, like, why did you do that? Say, because of COVID. Like, we're cleaning, we're, paper towels, it's more time. We have to raise our fees by $5 because of COVID. COVID is the answer to all of your business changes that you want to make. So leverage their worldviews against them. So I did that to you. Oh, how do I go back? There we go. November 9th, 5:21 p.m., Sean Dill posted, with everyone talking about the election, the vaccine, parlor, etc. How do you ensure that your message cuts through all of that and hits your ideal prospect? Maybe I should do a webinar on that. Comment, I would go if you want me to tell you how to do this for free. Well, here's what I did. Please follow along because I am very transparent. All these marketing and sales gurus that teach you how to do it, do marketing and sales, and then you look at what they do and it's completely different. I'm literally teaching you this. Here's what I did. I looked at you. I'm looking right through this. I looked at you. And I was like, what's your worldview? I know what your worldview is. Election, and majority of you red, but not all. So election, the vaccine, majority of you, but not all, against. Parlor, majority of you, follow me on Parlor at Dr. Sean Dill. I posted that again 3 months ago when Parlor was starting. I knew I didn't have to do that at that point. And I knew your pain point. Your pain point was, with all of this nonsense, I'm passionate about this and nobody's talking about this. And so I just baited you right into that. Now, here's what happened. I know I got a couple of my diehards, my followers on here that are like, yeah, I follow this. Here's what you did is you made a post that said, if I did a webinar if I did a webinar, what would you want me to talk about? That's not what I did, because then I've seen those posts are like chocolate chip cookies and cats. I didn't say that. I didn't say if I did a webinar, what do you want me to talk about? I told you in advance what I already knew you wanted me to talk about. And then I said, if you want that, then act. Look at this, 305 comments. How did we do it? Well, because I understood your worldview. I understood the messaging. I didn't push my agenda down your throat. I pushed your agenda down your throat. And you bit, and you bit. You're watching me right now. You've got to admit, you got to say, how do you do that? Okay, let's continue. What I was doing there was I was pre-selling. There's two types of selling in marketing. So, this is the gray zone, because marketing creates awareness and then it becomes sales. And in that gray zone, we have pre-selling and we have FOMO selling. So pre-selling is exactly what I was doing. Like if I did this, right? So I'm thinking about this. If I had a solution, like and don't do this, don't do this. I'm saying don't do this. But for example, if I had a solution that would enable you to live free of stress and anxiety in the world of COVID, would you be interested? Type, I hate COVID if you are. Don't do that. But I'm just saying, for example, that's pre-selling. That's pre-selling. Maybe I'm pre-selling a vaccine. Maybe I'm selling a chiropractic adjustment. Who knows at that point? Maybe I'm selling vitamins. Like nobody knows, but that's pre-selling, right? FOMO selling is the next step where everybody's doing it and you're the only one that's going to be left out, right? And my post said there's only 100 spots. We're hovering right around there right now. So far, I don't think anybody's getting locked out, but there's only 100 spots. Everybody's doing it. You don't want to be the only one left out, right? And so you do FOMO selling. The next thing that we've got to work on, we've got to build for you is relational capital. It's who knows what you know and do they like you? I mean, the reason why that's so important right now, listen to me, you want to make some extra money, you want to build your business during this Q4 COVID season, you got to reach out to people. I got to tell you too, one of the things that's absolutely certain for me, in a Biden presidency, for every single one of you watching, even for those of you watching overseas, in a Biden presidency, the world's economy is going to constrict, especially with COVID, and it's going to get hard. So I work with a lot of people that are like, yeah, Sean, I don't really want to work. What? Well, you have to work, and you're going to have to work hard if you want to make a lot of money during the Biden presidency. But one of the ways that we can work less and get to our goals faster is through relational capital, because then we can leverage other people who like you. They don't necessarily have to do business with you. They just have to like you, and we can leverage their relational capital to get there faster. How? Through influence, distribution channels, by getting them to advocate for you. Either they advocate openly for you, in essence, they endorse you, which I've been saying this for years too. In the service world, you're so conditioned into testimonials. Testimonials are stupid because I don't know who Mary B from Portland, Oregon is, but endorsement is valuable. And endorsement doesn't mean that they use the service, but Gary Vaynerchuk saying that you are the best graphic designer that he's ever met, that means a ton. He's not saying that he used you. He's just saying you're the best graphic designer that he ever met. Somebody in your community saying you're the best practitioner that they've ever met is far more valuable than nameless, faceless Mary B from Portland saying that you saved her life. Endorsement over testimonial. Why? Because it leads to distribution. Distribution allows you to leverage other people's influence in order to get your message out quicker in an election, in a crowded world with election noise and pandemic noise. People are already paying attention to certain figures, both inside and outside of your community. And by using them, leveraging their position, their influence, you can cut through that noise. Also, I want to talk to you about the parasite host relationships that exist all around in business. I recently saw that Philadelphia is going back on lockdown. And a lot of the restaurants began to cut their orders for supplies because they don't want the food to spoil or go bad, which is very smart. But I heard an interesting story in Philadelphia of a woman that was interviewed, and she ran, in essence, what I would call a knickknack shop. And it was very seasonal. She's kind of like odds and ends in her store, but she had a lot of like holiday stuff, random, Beanie Babies and coasters and just random stuff that was kind of holiday oriented. I'm sure you've seen these types of stores before. And in the interview, she said, as soon as they announced the lockdown and I found out that the restaurants were cutting back on their orders, I completely canceled my holiday order for the knickknack shop. And the reason is, listen to me very closely. The reason is because my business comes from the people that go to the restaurants. They maybe have a few cocktails, have a meal, and when they leave, they see the knickknack shop and they come over and then they might buy something from me. But without the traffic, without the restaurants and the traffic, nobody's going to just get in their car and come to the knickknack shop. They come to the knickknack shop because it's convenient. I'll give you another example. There's a very famous hair cutting franchise that their strategy is they're located next to very popular fast food restaurants. Why? Because people go to the fast food restaurant. One, their mentality, I want it fast, I want it cheap. And they're there. And that traffic then leads to people stopping in and getting a cheap, fast haircut as well. Brilliant model until the pandemic hit. And then they didn't have the traffic in the fast food restaurants. And ultimately this affected then the haircutting places. This is called a parasite host relationship. Now you need to think of your business and understanding it doesn't have to be just brick and mortar. It also can occur electronically, but are there any parasites, or are you the parasite that you're looking for a host that you can leverage and benefit from? And everybody always tells me, well, I just want to be the host. Look, the host is like McDonald's or Walmart, right? You know, the little nail salon inside of Walmart, parasite host relationship. The optical shop inside of Walmart, the parasite host relationship. So it's not really feasible that you become the host. I mean, I would love for you to think that, but really what I want you to be thinking in terms of right now is how can you be a better parasite? And where are your hosts? Who could drive traffic? Who could drive leads to you so that you can expand your influence? Now we're into messaging, core messaging, safety. We want to talk a lot about safety. When I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like I need to see this in your social media and your emails. I need your core messaging to become safe, safety. Is it safe to do business with you? What does that mean? Well, as far as COVID is concerned, are you, and here's what the problem is like, well, I'm against masks. Okay, that's fine. But like the people that come to you need to feel safe. This is one of, if not the, it's not the, but it's close to the primary concern for individuals going out to anywhere. They want to be safe. I recently had dinner the other night with an individual, and I really wanted to have dinner with them because they are a billionaire. And I was like, yeah, let's have dinner. He invited me to dinner. He's like, you want to have dinner? I was like, yeah, let's have dinner. And he's like, but do you mind if we sit outside because I'm from New Jersey? I was like, oh, of course. I want you to feel safe. I don't care myself. I'm not wearing a mask, and I could not wear a mask inside. But you want to sit inside. You want to sit outside. Sorry, because it makes you feel safe. Safety is a big concern. Also, is it safe to do business with you relative to the finances? Like, am I going to lose all of my money? What if, things turn south? Are you understanding how to frame that? And here we are with next messaging, price versus value. This is actually the number one consideration that consumers have right now, not versus price and value, that consumers have right now. And we talked about the cost of not taking action, right? So the price doesn't mean just discounting. It means the price of not taking action. But it also means, are you adding value to doing business with you? I mean, this is your opportunity to leverage what we talked about before. If you come in to see me, maybe you get a free something with one of my relationships, or maybe you get a massive discount of something with one of my relationships. Bundling is something that's super popular right now. Bundle and discounting. I know a lot of you are anti-discount, as am I. So value add is another way of discounting. If I was going to buy your thing and I was going to buy this other thing, and that by buying your thing, I got a massive discount or the other thing for free, well, then that's incentive for me to do it. Let's say that your thing costs $500 and the other thing that I was going to buy was $100. If you just bought it for me, so I gave you $500 and you bought me the other thing, in essence, you gave me $100 discount, but I didn't feel it as a discount. I feel it as a value add to transacting business with you. Next up, friction to transaction. Eliminating the friction to transaction. This is the number two concern for individuals when making a decision. They don't want to get in their car. They don't want to go places. They don't want to be exposed to unnecessary risk. They don't want to have to think about things. They don't want to do, they need it to be as frictionless as possible. They want to make their appointments online. They want to do everything. They want Amazon just to they want to look at it on the internet. They want to type it in, and they want Amazon to bring their thing and put it in the front door, which, by the way, you got to look at the earnings reports for Walmart, Amazon, Costco, big business, rich are getting richer. Unfortunately, some of you may be struggling. The middle class is being pushed down. We're about to see the greatest separation of wealth probably in the history of the United States. This whole webinar and what I teach is to try and keep you on the right side of that separation. So are you still doing business the old fashioned way? Like we only take cash, we don't take Amex, like everything that all these weird rules that you've created, that works great in a booming economy. As the economy constricts, you're going to have to eliminate the friction to transaction. I can't be guessing about how much it costs. You can't tell people how much does it cost. It depends. You have to come down and do a consult and then we'll tell you. There's too much friction. It's not effortless and easy to engage you. You can't make them listen to a class. You can't make them bring their spouse. You can't make them watch all these things. They want it to be as easy as possible. Now, I got to be honest with you. All that stuff was a waste of your time anyway. And so this is great. This is great. Stop having this thing where there's so many rules and hoops to jump through before somebody can give you their money. And then finally, almost thank yous. Hey, if you want to get a hold of this COVID research, go to www.winbigmedia.com/COVID. That's from my boy, Philip Stutz. A lot of this idea of preeminence and benevolence from my coach, Jay Abraham. Check him out at www.abraham.com. Philip Stutz is a political strategist, author of Fire Them Now. In my mind, one of the greatest political strategists of all time is Roger Stone. If you haven't watched my interview with Roger Stone, go over to YouTube and search for None of Your Business. Search for Roger Stone, search for Sean Dill. You'll be able to see the interview that we did with him. It's not about politics, although part of it is about politics. It's an awful lot about what I'm fascinated by in any election season is how we can use and leverage political strategy to sell a message, to sell an idea. If you understood it and you didn't get caught up in it, that's why I stay out of it. Oh, there's a lot of value in there for you. And lastly, hey, thank you. Thank you for joining. Literally just put this together to show you the power of getting the messaging right, respecting and understanding worldviews and frames, and putting this message out. I want to encourage you to swipe and deploy. Use what we're using, do what we're doing, even if you're doing it from afar. And if you want to get a little bit closer, if you want even greater access to me, Lacey, the BDC coaches, Christine, Stephanie, Mel Krug, Billy Chow, David Meltzer. Oh, yeah. You got to join Black Diamond Club. Go to www.blackdiamondclub.com. We would love to have you as a part of the family. And I promise you, we will make you feel right at home. That's all I've got for you tonight. Thank you so much for being with me. Until next time, see ya.